Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. Smash the like button if you love me. Subscribe if you're new. Please have your say. And a very, very, very warm welcome to Fridays. Yes, it's Friday. I can't believe it. Is it Friday? It is Friday. Thank crunching, it's Friday. Do you remember that? When we were kids in the UK, if you're from America, you won't remember that. But anyway, yes, a very warm welcome to Friday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. And our little debate today, our huge talking point today, and I do love the little debates we have. So if you're watching the live premiere, please comment with your frank and honest views. Just be constructive and polite with them if you can, so we can exchange views, because having opposing views isn't a bad thing. So anyway, our conversation, our little debate today is asking, what are the odds of making a successful Superman film in the modern era of Hollywood? An ideological modern era, and that ideology has destroyed Hollywood, has destroyed entertainment, basically in the West, and creatively they're absolutely bankrupt. We know that. And this industrial action the Writers Guild of America are taking is kind of a confirmation that this industry is totally broken. So with that said, can they make a successful Superman movie where the odds are not even looking good if they attempted this in the 90s? Well, they did. They attempted to make a Superman Lives movie. They wanted Nick Cage to play Superman. I love Nick Cage. I love the fact that he's a huge Superman fan. But Nick Cage is Superman, a superstar, as Superman. Sandra Bullock as Lois Lane. Come on. Now, there was going to be some interesting other castings, some good castings in other iconic roles. This was Superman Lives. This was going to be the whole Doomsday thing. That's what Tim Burton was doing here. And kind of, I was excited about Tim Burton doing kind of a moody, haunting Superman movie in the style of his two Batman movies. It would have been interesting. I would have loved to have seen it, but it didn't happen. They blocked a few sets and things like that. They set things up, but they never really shot very, very much. Of course, the old YouTube dress rehearsals with Nicolas Cage wearing that, what looks like an awful Superman costume. But we were told in that documentary by, is it Schnepp, that, it would have looked better than what it did in that YouTube video. We'll never know. There have been many attempts to make a Superman movie, and some have happened. After many, many years, Superman Returns was made. Then we had Man of Steel. But you can take this to the bank. This is not a debate. This is not an opinion. But you can get involved in this, whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Superman the movie is the only truly successful Superman film. How can you say that, Mick? Quite easily. It was critically successful, and it was financially successful. Superman the movie in 1978 made $300 million globally at the end of its theatrical run. Mick, but Man of Steel made 650. BVS made 880. Superman Returns made just under 400 million. But if you translate 300 million from 1978 to the 21st century, or even the 20th century later on, like 90s, it's still more money than any other Superman movie has ever made. Basically, if you want to translate it, I think you're looking at around $2 billion for Superman the movie. And add this in as well. Superman the movie was shown in half of the screens that Superman Returns and Man of Steel was as well. There was no IMAX, there was no 3D, there was just SD, there was just standard screens. And the amount of screens these modern movies are shown in today, even Superman Returns was shown on an IMAX screen. Yeah, crazy, right? Because that was shot on an experimental camera called, at the time it was experimental by Bryan Singer, and I think it was called the Phoenix camera. And that was a very, very good piece of kit, I can tell you that. And so Superman the movie is the most successful, the only successful Superman movie. Superman 2 had mixed reviews. It did okay money, but much less than Superman the movie. Superman 3 divided Superman fans. It didn't make as much money as even Superman 2. Superman 4, of course, was a disaster. We've spoken about Superman Returns, just under 400 million. Man of Steel, 650 million. BVS, which is also a Superman movie, technically, made about 880, 850, which is really, really good. Unfortunately, the studio spent so much money on it, and they invested that money so they could bring home $2 billion. So Man of Steel didn't bring home the money the studio that wanted, and BVS didn't bring home the bacon that the studio wanted. So the only movie that has reached what the producers, the Salkinds, wanted, and Warner Brothers at the time, basically is Superman the movie. It's the only successful Superman movie. Success means top dollar and critical acclaim and award nominations. It broke ground. It changed cinema. Superman the movie, and a year before it, Star Wars A New Hope, invented the blockbuster, along with Jaws if you want to get technical. Now, we can do another video where we discuss if the invention of the blockbuster was a good thing or if the blockbuster in the end actually killed cinema. Another discussion for another time. So is it possible for a Superman movie in the modern day made by New Hollywood, can it be as successful as Superman the movie? There's only two pieces of Superman live action that are critically successful and financially successful. That's Superman the movie and Smallville. Superman the movie and Smallville were the perfect storm. We never thought in terms of Smallville we would get something in Superman live action that would be as perfect as Superman the movie. It was very modern. They changed a lot of things. They changed a bit of canon, but the character was still Superman. He was still pure of heart. They didn't change that. Now, Smallville at the time, believe it or not, was a little bit divisive. It did split Superman fans, but it was very, very popular and very, very successful. So these are the heights that James Gunn must reach to. Make absolutely no mistake, whether you love James Gunn, despise James Gunn, or you're a James Gunn apologist or a James Gunn shill, Superman Legacy must bring home $2 billion from the global box office by the end of its run. Shh. There's no debate. There's no debate. Shh. There's no debate. There's no point saying that's not the case. It has to be successful. This is Superman's and DC live action's last chance. What are the odds of this happening? The odds of finding the success of Superman the movie and Smallville are very, very, very long. And you always have to look at the person who's in charge of this. And this time, it's James Gunn. Now, I remember when I heard Bryan Singer was going to be directing and co-writing Superman Returns. Now, this was before we found out all the rumours about his problematic behaviour. I want to add that in so I don't get people saying, oh my God, why are you saying nice things about this bad person? I didn't know he was bad at the time. In fact, he was a bit of a directorial hero of mine at the time. Because, you know, The Usual Suspects was outstanding, X1 was outstanding, and X2 was outstanding. And I was very excited that he was going to be involved with Superman. I thought this was it. I thought we were running through the ticker tape. The whistle had been blown. This was going to be a foregone conclusion success story, and it wasn't. Despite it not being a success story, I really like Superman Returns. I want to be clear about that. So at the very least, he made a film that I go back to and enjoy. Like Man of Steel and like BVS. But I can be honest, I can take my bias and put it to one side and say they wasn't universally successful movies. Superman the movie is the only universally successful Superman movie. in terms of what people think about it, what critics thought about it, and what money it brought back to the studio. And that's the debate we're having today. Can a movie do that type of money today? Can it bring everyone together? Because basically, movie audiences need something, to bring people together. We've never been so divided as geeks, nerds, and people who go to a movie theatre to escape our dreary everyday lives. We are divided. The internet is dividing us with all these different takes. I only have to go on my Twitter. Man of Steel's bad. Man of Steel's good. Man of Steel's shit. Man of Steel's dangerous. Oh my God, he only said 30 words. Oh my God, this. Oh my God, he never smiled. Blah, blah, blah. So we've never been more divided, because when you're seeing all these different views that are opposed to your views, you're going to be upset. It's only natural that we're divided in a world where people can't keep their fucking thoughts to themselves. Look at me. I can't fucking stop gas bagging once a day on these videos, right? But that's the whole point of the platform. I love these videos. It's not about being successful. It's not about being a talented content creator. I'm not. I enjoy these videos. I enjoy my social media activities. And it's nothing to do with making money. Now, I respect people who are successful on social media. And they're talented people, and well done. That's not what I'm about. I'm here because I love being here. So anyway, let's continue with our little debate. I think the odds are very low. Every time I think about it, and I've said I want to be open-minded about James Gunn's Superman Legacy, and I am being as open-minded as I possibly can. But when I look at new Hollywood and what it's done with its ideology, and now what's going on with these strikes and talking about artificial intelligence writing entertainment, I think entertainment has never been on the floor. It's never been lower. And now we can see them at each other's throats. And it's actually quite funny, because we're dealing with an industry that's attacked its customer. It's attacked you and me for being men, being straight, being white. That's our big crimes. This is how fucking insane these people are. No wonder there's a divide between the industry and its audience and its customer. Is there any surprise when you're attacking people? When an actor says, while I'm having my morning cornflakes, that anyone who didn't go to the cinema to watch a gay romantic comedy, aka Bros, is homophobic. What am I supposed to do with that shitty take, apart from get angry and disappointed and heartbroken over it? So we are in a very, very sad place in entertainment. But surprisingly, before Star Wars and Superman the movie, the industry was also in a very depressing place. The industry was also on the floor. Like, big corporations were buying the Foxes and the Warners because the Warner Brothers were selling up. They wanted to retire. The people who founded Fox were selling up, so they were bought up by breweries and companies like that. And they wanted to appeal to younger audiences because everything had got very, very kind of stagnant, kind of gritty, and there was a lot of realism back then. And if you notice today, there's a lot of realism in our films, and that can be really depressing. One of the things I've noticed today, either a director is very immersed in realism, like Nolan or Reeves, and they don't have any kind of a variety to their tone, or they go other ways. And I think back in the day, you look at kind of Richard Donner's, body of work. It's neither kind of drowned in realism or fantasy. He did The Goonies, he did Lethal Weapon. Lethal Weapon was very grounded. But then, you look at Superman the movie, which wasn't grounded. It was set in a fantasy world after all, and he wasn't trying to be over gritty. And I think that was great back then. We had directors with varied abilities, with varied tones. We don't have that today. They're either light, dark, gritty, or they're grounded in reality. There's too much being grounded in reality. We look at something like Andor, like a Star Wars show, which is immersed in fantasy and it's so grounded and gritty, and you're falling asleep within 10 minutes of the fucking thing. If you last 10 minutes, you'll be lucky. And so the odds of these people with these kind of ideological thought processes making a successful movie is very, very difficult. They use the term a reimagining a lot today. How can you reimagine something when you don't have an imagination? Because these people do not have an imagination. So we're asking people who lack imagination to give us a great Superman movie. Now, James Gunn has got an interesting imagination. He does love this stuff. His three Guardians movies are great. He's a solid writer-director, nothing more than that. But you've got to understand, for those of you who are really, really excited, beyond open-minded, about Superman Legacy and James Gunn, you've got to understand there's a difference between Guardians of the Galaxy and any other comic book character and Superman. Superman is about patriotism. Superman is an American myth. He's about American mythology. And it isn't your kids that love Superman. It's the dads, the granddads, the uncles, the aunts, the grandmas. Let's be honest about it. The modern generation doesn't really look up to Superman. Now, prior to the Rose episode of Doctor Who and its revival, kids weren't interested in classic Who. So the way that parents said to kids on the night Rose aired, which was the Doctor Who revival, they said, come on kids, sit on the sofa, we're watching something, Doctor Who's back. They forced their kids to watch this. Kids got into it. Parents took their kids to see The Phantom Menace. The parents hated it, but the kids loved it. And this has to happen with Superman Legacy, where parents and grandparents are taking their grandkids and their kids to the cinema to watch Superman Legacy. Because this generation are not going to go on their own to the cinema. So once the kids start getting forced to go by, their grandparents and their parents, and they sit there, and let's just say, for argument's sake, they love it, they tell their mates. Then everyone starts going, and then Superman is back in the conversation for this generation. This is how Superman Legacy can be successful. This is the only way it can be successful in terms of a younger, modern audience. And the most important thing is, it's a great fucking movie. James Gunn again discusses that it's not true that DC and Marvel hate each other. And again, he doesn't understand fandoms. We don't hate each other, James, because he always says this is a bad thing, because he sounds literal-minded. I understand when you're, living in Hollywood and LA and California is like living on another fucking planet. After all, I have fucking lived there for a few months. I know. But you've got to understand fandoms, James. And it's very important in your position as DC Studios co-CEO that you do understand fandoms. We're the customer, we're important. If you don't understand us, you can't make us a Superman movie. It's very important you understand us. Marvel fans don't hate DC fans fans don't hate Marvel fans, DC fans don't hate Marvel, and Marvel don't hate DC. It's banter. It's a bit of fun. It's, it's rivalry. Just like when we're talking about football, we have fan rivalry. It's like anything in life. You're either on that side or that side, right? Now, I hear these people going, well, I'm both a Marvel fan and a DC fan. Bollocks. You prefer one, you're just not admitting it. I'm a DC fan who admires some of the MCU, the first two phases. That's where I am on it. But I like having banter with other Marvel fans. And we have lots of friendly banter, and when it's done, we're still mates. This is what you don't understand, James. This is what ideologues don't understand. That isn't hatred. That's just rivalry and banter. And if you don't understand that, you're not going to do a very good job as co-CEO of DC Studios. You're not going to do a very good job as the writer-director of Superman Legacy if you don't get that. And James, you have put yourself in a very, very big position. You have a big responsibility to make a Superman movie that makes $2 billion. That is the best CBM that's ever made. Because when you touch Superman, this is the challenge that you give yourself. I'm not sitting here saying this because I want the man to fail. I want the man to succeed. Whatever your faults on the man, he's been put in the prime position. Whether he should be in that position or not is another conversation for another time. Is James Gunn a talented writer-director who can pull this off, or is he part of the problem of New Hollywood? Well, I answer that question differently, depending on what side of the bed I wake up from. Today, I simply can't answer that question, and the proof of the pudding will be in the eating. But the odds of him making a successful Superman movie, as successful as Superman the movie, and as successful as Smallville in people's hearts, is very, very unlikely. Because they show me where it's been done. There hasn't been a successful Superman film that hasn't divided audiences since Superman the movie, or divided critics. This is where we are. Superman the movie is the only movie to universally succeed in terms of Superman. They're the facts. And this is the challenge that James Gunn has got ahead of him. As I say, this is not a debate. This is the truth. This is factual. So it doesn't mean because it's hard that you don't do it. You know, this is Superman, the biggest character in comics. He's not, a lot of people find him a challenge. Comic book writers find him a challenge. Now, we've spoken about my story. When I was thinking about doing a Superman film, of course, I'm never going to do a Superman film, but I sat down and wrote a script for a Superman film. And we've discussed this so many times. And I looked at the episode of Smallville called Legion. Legion's a very, very interesting episode. And it's the episode where Clark meets the Legion. The Legion have the Legion ring. They can travel in time. They come to the past. And they're from the future. Brainiac has taken over Clark's best friend Chloe's body. And the Legion tell him he's got to kill her. And he won't have it. He's standing up for his friend. And he's standing up for his no-kill policy. And this really, really inspired me to write a Superman story, the kind of film that I would make. And I started this from a challenge that my mate said to me, you know, you're always talking about making, you know, what the perfect Superman film is. Why don't you put your money where your mouth is and write a script? I thought, all right then, I will then. So I did. I wrote a script for the kind of Superman film that I want. And, you know, I don't want to bore you about it again, but yeah, I did it. And I was also inspired by the relationship between Steve Rogers and Bucky in the MCU. It's the greatest relationship in that franchise. So I thought, what if Clark Kent and John Corbin, who will ultimately become Metallo, become best friends and work together at the Daily Planet, and then he becomes Metallo, then the world starts putting pressure on Superman to kill Metallo. And Manchester Black enters the fray and starts spreading propaganda that Superman won't do what's necessary. He won't kill Metallo. We flash back to World War II, where governments of the world, the Allies, are pressuring Superman to kill the Nazis and Hitler. And Superman refuses. So it's the story. It's about putting Superman and his no-kill policy on trial. And of course, when we flash back to World War II, we get to see him in his Action Comics #1 costume as well. That's another reason to do that. And so it was a deep idea of Superman standing on his own while everyone's saying, you know, why don't you kill the villains? If you kill them, they can't come back. That's the whole story. That's the whole point of Superman versus the elite. So I think there are very, very interesting things you can do with Superman. And I think by doing it the way I want to do it, because it's important if you make a Superman film, or a cartoon or a comic book, that the audience, the reader or whoever, like Superman. You've got to like Superman to make him relatable. If the audience don't like him and they just feel he's bland, you know, he's too good, he's too nice, but I don't like him. He hasn't got that thing that brings me into the story. But if you've got a story where the whole world is against him because he won't be a killer, he won't do the wrong thing, then you're siding with Superman and you're understanding Superman. You're giving the audience a story that gets, you get to know your principal character. And that's the point in that. I think it's very, very dangerous because I know what James Gunn probably will will go about doing Superman Legacy, how he will go about doing Superman Legacy, and probably from, being directed from David Zaslav, make a bright, bubbly, happy version of Superman the movie. Yes, Superman the movie is the only successful Superman movie. It doesn't mean you copy and paste it. You can use it as your inspiration. You can use Man of Steel for a little bit of inspiration. You can even use Superman Returns. But Smallville is probably the best inspiration because that was done in the modern day and it worked for a lot more people than a lot of the other stuff did. Again, that's a factual statement. But at the end of the day, you've got to look at Superman, look at who he is, and how do you take that character, make him relatable, but more importantly, make him likable. Even with the story I'm doing, where they put Superman into no-kill policy on trial, there's got to be action. There's still got to be fun within all that. There's still got to be gags. We've got to get to know Jimmy Olsen. Now, Jimmy Olsen, for me, has always been an easy character to get right. Jimmy Olsen is the Doctor Who companion. He's our way into the story. He's a 16-year-old boy. He's a school leaver. He joins the Daily Planet. He becomes Superman's best pal. And basically, if you can see the whole film and the whole story from his eyes, I think that will be a very interesting way to do it as well. Because he's an ordinary human teenage boy going out in the world and, he's around Clark Kent, Superman, Lois. And that's going to be a very exciting thing for a young man. So if you do it from his point of view, that could be a very interesting thing as well. And these are the things, these are the ways you can do it. You can make Superman relatable. But I don't know about James Gunn. I talk about having an open mind, but I don't know. That's my opinion. I don't know if he can pull off Superman. That's where I am right now. I want to give him a chance. I'm not going to dismiss him. I'm not going to say he can't make a successful Superman movie, but it's interesting because he does say a lot of good things, to be fair to him. He says that he's not going to be delving into science and politics within the DC universe. And we took that to part and we translated it as to say, basically the DC universe won't go woke, which is a very good thing. And he's talking about just bringing love rather than that. And I know what he's trying to say. Love means entertainment. Can he do it? Can he succeed with DC? Can he succeed with Superman? Only time will tell. But when you look at the other attempts to make successful Superman movies, they have fallen flat on their face. And as I say, I love Superman 2 and Superman 3, and to a lesser extent Superman 4, Superman Returns, Man of Steel. I love all of them. But we can't deny that they didn't have the success with people and, didn't unite people like Superman the movie did. And that's the point. All-round success, universal success is what they're looking for. It's Superman. This is a character who stands there and says, I'm here for truth, justice, and the American way. They're very, they're patriotic ideals. And being patriotic these days is like waving the red rag to the bull. Now, I loved it how they did it in Superman the movie, because Superman says to Lois when she's interviewing him, I'm here for truth, justice, and the American way. And she says, you're going to be challenging every elected official. She's being cynical. So they take two opposing opinions. Superman is an innocent farm boy from Kansas. He's naive. But Lois has lived in the city all her life. So it's different. So she's more cynical. So you have different I really liked how they did that. So if you can do it that way in a modern movie, I think you can get away with it. But Superman is a very old-fashioned character, and he absolutely needs modernizing. He cannot be the character he was in 1938. And in terms of film, he cannot be the character he was when Christopher Reeve was playing him in 1978. It's very important everyone understands that. And it's James Gunn's job, his huge responsibility to adapt Superman for a modern age. This has been Friday's edition of the DC Universe Daily with me, Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives, please smash the like button. If you love me, subscribe if you're new. Please have your say. Smash the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection. And I'll see you again in the next video. Until I see you again, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen.